And welcome once again to this very, very special edition of the Dads, always on wrestling, here on the Jeff Meacham Network, also presented by Constantine Studios because Jay's here. Anyway, I am.
Because that's how we roll.
That's how we roll. And it's still WrestleMania season technically because it was just last weekend. So we're gonna send WrestleMania off with a bang here this week on Dads. I am, of course, West Coast Professor Jeff Meacham, and no Mick Foley is on either of our lists. He is the Renegade J.J. Williams, and you brought it to my attention. You have something very special to say before we get going here, my friends. So please, by all means, I'm not going to get into a big old spiel. WrestleMania is in the books. I'm happy. I actually got to sleep this week, so I'm very happy about that. And off we go, sir. By all means, take it away.
That was a little bit too much of a hype up. It wasn't anything really special to say. I just had a few words that I wanted to touch on here. You know, as you said, WrestleMania is now officially behind us, but felt like this topic for this week's Dads was the perfect way to wrap up 2 weeks of WrestleMania coverage. You know, I know Statboy talked a little bit about Mania last night on the Sports Bar. Yep. I know you covered Mania on Talk Wrestling this week. Briefly, so, you know, from Talk Wrestling 2 weeks ago now, all the way through today, it has been something WrestleMania related.
Pretty much.
You know, the Go Home Raw, the Hall of Fame, 2 nights of TakeOver, the Go Home SmackDown, 2 nights of Mania, Talk Wrestling covering WrestleMania, Statboy Sports Bar talking about Mania, Dads on Wrestling, top 10 WrestleMania matches.
There you go, brother. There it is, man. Woo! Love it.
It just seemed like the perfect way to close the book for at least a year.
Yes. Put this bitch to bed for a year for real. Jesus.
And kudos to WWE for waiting a little over a month before giving us the next pay-per-view.
Yes. I am a little concerned they're calling it WrestleMania Backlash and not Backlash. I'm like, do we really need WrestleMania? Like, I get that Mania is the name. I get it's the marquee. Do we really need to stretch it out another month? Like, Jesus, it's been stretched out more than one of Godfather's ladies. I mean, come on. Let's get move on here.
To be fair, ever since its inception, Backlash has almost always been WrestleMania Part 2.
True. Okay.
You know, matches that didn't get fully resolved at Mania, I'm looking at you, Orton Fiend, get resolved at Backlash.
Well, hopefully what we saw on Raw will be an indication of where we're going toward Backlash. And, you know, but like you said, we had Triple H and Rock at Backlash 2000, which should have been the WrestleMania main event in the first place when I was at WrestleMania. Let's not kid ourselves. I enjoyed the Fatal 4-Way because I'm a McFoley fan, but that whole show was a train wreck. Backlash 99, you had, of course, the Rock Austin rematch that got the Smoking Skull back in the Rattlesnake's possession. So I do see your point, but they never outright called it WrestleMania Backlash. So I'm just like, is it going to be overkill is my concern. And hopefully by the time we get to predictions week on this channel, on Aaron's channel with Greg and whatever, I'm hoping we're not just like, okay, we're doing the same shit from last month. Got it. So hopefully I'm wrong. But I digress because we're still in WrestleMania 2021 mode. And as such, we have each of us our top 10 lists of the top 10 WrestleMania matches that we feel were the best in WrestleMania history. And yes, we did include 2021 in our categorization because we wanted to give Saturday and Sunday's matches their due if we felt they deserved it. So there you go.
And keep in mind, we're not necessarily saying that these are the 10 greatest wrestling matches in WrestleMania history. These are our 10 favorite matches. The ones that we can put on and just drift back into the moment and relive over and over and over again.
Yes.
Some of them may surprise you, especially coming on my list, because there's some that are prior to me being a fan that are on my list. But that when I really just want to study, whether it's the psychology, or the wrestling or the storytelling, I go to these matches. As always, our lists are, as the graphic says, subjective. You got 10 different matches? Put them in the comments. Either right over here next to me as the live stream's going on, or down here if you're watching it on demand.
Right. Now, I will say this. As you're watching this, it is 7 o'clock Pacific. If you're watching live, we thank you for watching live, by the way. We are back to normal operations around Casa Meacham, so I'm very likely on the way to Hannibal Valley right now as you're watching this. So if I don't comment along, I promise you it is not with intent. It is strictly the fact that if you live in SoCal, you know this. Anything north of the 14 past Soledad, signal sucks. Can't watch shit. So, all right. Carry on.
And I'm more than likely at work right now. So,
Exactly. So, yeah. There you go.
I usually reply more so to the on-demand commentary than I do the live stream.
Right. Very much so.
It just is what it is when you've got a 9 to 5, baby.
That's it. And, when your transportation for your son is 9 to 5, you gotta go with what you gotta go with. So off we go.
All right. So being that it's a wrestling week, I take it I will be kicking this off.
Of course.
My number 10 match should surprise nobody that it's on my list. It might surprise people that it's this low, but I figure it's the greatest opening match in WrestleMania history. It should open up my list. Number 10 from WrestleMania 10, Bret versus Owen.
Whew, love it.
I'm coming out guns blazing, balls to the wall, right out the gate, guys. I mean, I talked about how if I want to slip away and study storytelling, psychology, technical ability, all that is in this one match, people.
Oh, yeah.
And this truly was Owen's moment to shine.
Absolutely.
Bret got his moment at the end of the night, winning the title. This was about trying to catapult Owen. And they did such a masterful job of doing it.
They really did, man. It was one of the better moments in history, for sure.
So, number 9 on my list. I know surprised you.
It did.
And it's probably going to surprise the fans. But you know what? This past weekend, Saturday more so than Sunday, I felt had a much stronger showing, much stronger match quality.
Right so.
And the main event of night 1 did not disappoint, in my opinion. Number 9, Bianca Bel Air versus Sasha Banks. From the moment that I first saw Bianca, considering that I am kind of new to her and getting back into it, wading into the waters, if you will.
Yeah.
The first time I saw Bianca, I was impressed with her. And I knew that eventually she was going to get her time to shine. When she won the Rumble this year, I knew her time was now. Absolutely. There was never a question in my mind that she was going to win this match. It was just a matter of how good was it going to be. And God damn it, if these two women did not pull off nothing short of a spectacle.
What I find fascinating, I'm gonna totally spoil, to a certain extent here. The fact that this is the only female match on your list, and your girl is not one of the participants. I am just. It's funny. Totally freaking pull back the curtain here. This is the curtain behind me. He told me that he had cropped all the images in thumbnail format. I'm like, he's learning. So proud. I am freaking even prouder of the fact that you didn't automatically gravitate toward Natty. This is a recent match. You're just kind of getting your toes back in the water here. Your ass is still back in the sand a little bit. And if you understand that reference, you're okay in this room. There you go. And you pick this match, dude. That makes me that warms my little ginger heart. I'm not gonna lie. Very cool. Very cool.
Well, I only, I told you off camera. I'll go ahead and tell the fans. I had written down 24 matches that I considered for my top 10. The only other women's match that I even had in consideration was Victoria versus Molly from WrestleMania 20.
Right.
That, for years, was my favorite women's match at WrestleMania.
Right.
This match is right up there now.
Right. Wow.
And that's some heavy company.
And to the credit of every other match in women's wrestling many history, Victoria Molly is more of a personal favorite for you than it is a technical marvel, because it's not really the technical masterpiece of a match or anything.
But no, but there was so much emotion behind it.
Right.
And now, the whole hair versus hair stipulation. I've said before, and I will take to my grave, I still feel WrestleMania 20 was the last great top to bottom WrestleMania.
And it's very hard to argue with that.
Even Lesnar Goldberg, for what it was, once it got moving,
right,
it wasn't horrible. It was just everything that led to the first punch being thrown that really derailed it.
It did. But other than that, solid card.
So Bianca though and Sasha, they deserved to close, and they did such a great job. Number 8 on my list. I'm sure you're probably surprised that I picked this one as opposed to the rematch.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the first encounter.
Right.
WrestleMania 14, The Undertaker versus Kane. And while, yes, WrestleMania 20, here we go again, was the more dramatic, it was the return of the dead man. You kind of knew what to expect at that point because they had such a long and storied history. You really didn't know what to expect from these two behemoths at WrestleMania 14.
Right.
Taker had been resisting the urge to fight his brother for so long, and Kane was still the unstoppable monster. What was going to happen when these two giants collided?
Yep.
And it was definitely not a technological marvel, but the storytelling, the psychology, very much prevalent there in this one.
It's funny. You say that 20 was more dramatic because of the return of the dead man. Of course, Paul Bearer returning after being gone for so long also. But yes.
Like you said, the whole storytelling between that saga was just amazing.
Oh, just so great.
And this match, I feel, was really the beginning of all of that.
Yep, exactly.
And this is where we opened the book that finally just recently got closed.
Yeah, I mean, figure that was 1998. That was 23 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, so almost a quarter century of these two guys going back and forth. Crazy.
Number 7 on my list is actually a match from WrestleMania 20 that made the list.
There you go.
That, like I said, there's so many matches from that show that I had in contention for this list, but this one actually made the cut. And it may surprise you that this match made it over the other title match.
True.
But Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship. In the match that everybody thought Angle was going to walk out of there with that belt, and Eddie was just a transitional champion.
Yep.
Eddie proved them all wrong. He lied, he cheated, he stole, and he kept that gold.
He did.
You know, my favorite spot of the match is the finish, where Eddie fakes the ankle injury, gets Kurt in, grabs him, rolls him up, and just out of nowhere. No fancy finisher, no frog splash, no lasso from El Paso. He just rolls him up very slickly, lies, cheats, and steals his way to that victory.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Because it's a finish that you wouldn't have expected.
Exactly.
And it was just so beautifully done. Number 6 on my list is honestly the first one that I wrote down, because I feel like anytime you talk about great WrestleMania matches, this one has to be brought up.
Quite so.
And it's definitely a technical masterpiece. Two men in their primes. From WrestleMania 3, Savage versus Steamboat.
Oh, yes.
You know, I still to this day don't know a whole lot about the background story going into the match, because obviously I wasn't a fan back then, and it's not like there was Raws every week to kind of build it up.
Yeah.
But these two getting into the middle of the ring there and touching hands was magic.
Yep.
And even though Steamboat was always more of an NWA guy than he was a WWF guy, I would like to have seen some Savage Steamboat matches once Randy had got the championship.
Definitely.
The WWF championship.
Right, right.
Because I think that the bigger stakes would have just made what happened in this encounter that much better.
Yeah, when you think about, and again, this is just me kind of hyperbole here. Arguably the two greatest matches in technical wrestling history both involve the Dragon. Savage Steamboat, Flair Steamboat. That shows you how good Ricky was, how crushing it was to all of us that he had to retire when he did in '94, and how over the moon we were when he had that minor comeback, a brief comeback in 2009. Just, it was like, oh, we get our Dragon. Because, I mean, he looked like he was 25 years younger. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Good on him. I loved it. It was so cool to see.
Number 5 on my list, starting off the top half of the list.
Yes,
definitely not a technical masterpiece,
no.
But goddamn if it wasn't a spectacle. The Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys versus Edge and Christian, TLC 2.
Man.
This was a spot fest.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just call it what it was.
Yeah.
I'm not taking anything away from these 6 individuals, nor the 3 that did run-ins. Spike Dudley for the Dudleys, Rhino for Edge and Christian, and Lita for the Hardys.
Right.
Those 9 individuals put on a show.
Yes.
But it was very much a case of Brian Cage, get your shit in.
Right.
This wasn't going to be Savage Steamboat. This wasn't going to be Bret versus Owen. This was going to be, let's go out there and pray to God we don't die.
Yeah. The fact that Edge and Jeff Hardy are still walking after that spear, just on that spot alone, is a medical marvel.
But I had to get some kind of tag team representation in my list. And what better, in my opinion, than to get 3 teams that I really admired back in the day. Absolutely. I was on the edge of my seat holding my breath with every spot.
Yes.
It was just insane.
For the record, the triangle ladder match from the previous year was like 10A. Like it was right there, almost on my list, but just didn't quite get there. And plus, I was there. So
I didn't even write that one down because I knew I was going to have TLC.
Right. And to be fair to TLC too, I was in person for the triangle ladder match, so that kind of eclipses for me. I was also in person for TLC 3, the forgotten TLC, because of certain people's post-scripted activities. So
not even
TLC
because 2, of that, but because it was on SmackDown.
Well,
it wasn't a pay-per-view.
Right, but had it not been for Chris Benoit being in the match, it'd be on every freaking DVD they talked about when it comes to ladder matches or TLC matches or whatever. It would be a featured match because it was a damn good match.
Maybe.
TV edits or not, it was a damn good match. And I just, it's being in person for both those, like TLC, as great as TLC 2 was, and I'm not taking that away from your list or for anybody else's list out there, I just get so in my head about Triangle Ladder TLC 3. They just kind of go, they bookend rather than, feature. So anyway,
fair enough. Number 4 on my list, I had 3 choices.
Yeah.
Because this is a match that was featured 3 times, once at 15, once at 17, and once at 19. The Rock and Stone Cold.
Whew.
I didn't pick the 15 one because even though that was the first encounter, I feel like it was the weakest.
Agreed.
And it's very rare that the original is the weakest.
Yeah.
I've been talking trilogies all month on my channel, and I defy you to find me a part 1 that is the weakest in the saga. You just can't.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost went with WrestleMania 17, but I feel like the heel turn at the end really killed it for me. Especially considering at the end of the day, it didn't lead anywhere major.
Right.
We got some good comedy haha segments. We got Austin in the Alliance. But at the end of the day, Austin came back home where he belonged. I picked WrestleMania 19 almost as much for the story behind the match as the story inside the match.
Very true.
Because inside the match, you had Rocky, the Hollywood icon, coming home to do the one thing he never had been able to do, defeat Austin at WrestleMania.
Right.
Inside the match, you had Austin coming back. Was he going to be able to still give 100%?
Yeah. 8 months off, let's not forget that. So.
And you had behind the scenes the fact that Austin had been rushed to the hospital and only released a couple hours prior to the show, but still going out there and doing the match. Very much a Randy the Ram at the end of The Wrestler. Should he have still been out there after just being dispatched from the hospital a couple hours prior? Probably not.
Yeah.
In all honesty. But the two put on a classic.
They did. They really did.
They told a great story, used some good psychology, accentuated the strengths, hid the weaknesses. And it was easily both of theirs, at least for a moment, their finest hours.
Yeah.
Rocky finally did what he had never been able to do and beat Austin at Mania. And right. Austin went out there with his OMR one more round and had his swan song.
Right. Now, before you move on to number 3, since this is the only time The Rock appears on either of our lists, let me just throw that spoiler out there at you. I can see that may be a mistake on my part, and maybe even to a lesser extent on your part. You actually have him on your list at least once. When you think about The Rock and you think about his place in history, yes, he is the man who right now is on every Hollywood billboard. He's the man in Hollywood right now. No question about that. When you think about his place in WWE, he was the guy that really picked up the ball, but not only Stone Cold left when he got hurt, but that he dropped and went home for a year and carried it and ran down the field until, Brock Lesnar came along later that same year. But at the end of the day, if Rock did nothing else at WrestleMania, he defeated Hulk Hogan, he defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he defeated John Cena. And only 2 of those guys got one back on him. Hulk can't even say he beat Rock on pay-per-view.
Nope.
Period. Not just Mania. So if for no other reason than the fact that The Rock beat the 3 best ever, he's the greatest WrestleMania performer of all time. I mean, yeah, the streak is the streak. I'm not even denying the streak at all out there. But, I mean, The Rock is the man when it comes to main events.
And full disclosure, in the 24 matches I had listed, I did have Rock Hogan. I did have Rock Cena.
Right. So did I, for the record.
I did have those matches on there, but I went with Rock Austin for the reasons that I did.
Exactly.
Rock Hogan was an iconic moment in history, a time capsule, if you will.
Right.
Aside from that, there's not a whole lot to write home about.
Right.
For that match.
Yeah.
Rock Cena, I had part 1, the once in a lifetime, not part 2 on my list.
Right, me too.
Because had it ended there where it was supposed to, it would have been great.
Right.
But we had to get the rematch. Cena had to get his comeuppance.
And to a certain extent, knowing the history we know now, he almost had to get that championship win because there was a lot of shit that went down in 2012 that he needed to make right. So I get that, but I am totally okay with Hogan not having a win over The Rock, and that's hard coming from me. But the fact that he never definitively, I don't think he even beat Rock on TV in a one-on-one match, let alone a tag match. Because I think the only match where they were opposing each other was NWO versus him and Austin, and they lost that match too. So, Hogan won that match. The NWO won that match, so it was a team win. But Rock and Hogan on opposite sides, one-on-one, was never a bad night for The Rock. So he just, we all know my opinion of The Rock last few years has greatly changed. But I have to concede that, if Undertaker is the man because of the streak and Shawn Michaels because of WrestleMania, Michaels' win-loss record at WrestleMania is not so good. But Rock's, even if it's more kilter toward the loss side, those 3 wins freaking way tip the scales in his favor. So, anyway. I'm cutting into your time. I keep doing that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's all good. I welcome your opinions on my matches, sir. You are the professor for a reason.
No.
And it's funny that you mentioned Michaels' win-loss record because in the next 3 matches, Michaels appears twice.
Right. I know.
So,
Yeah. There you
go. I did mention that this match may have been the biggest moment for Rock and Austin, but you've almost got to kind of concede that my next match, number 3, is right up there for Austin.
Oh, very much so.
Austin versus Bret, Mania 13. Submission match.
Yeah.
The night that roles were reversed, and Austin became the babyface, and Bret became the heel.
Yeah.
Would Austin have gotten to where he was a year later without this match? Unpopular opinion? No, he would not have.
Right.
This match made Austin almost as much as the moment at King of the Ring did. But if he had gone nowhere after King of the Ring, no one would remember Austin 316.
King of the Ring was his stamp in the sand. WrestleMania was his coming out party. Like, yeah, I've been doing this for half a year and, biding my time. I'm a superstar. Recognize, much like Roman said Sunday night, recognize me or the phrase he used, whatever he said was, just acknowledge him. There we go. Acknowledge me. This was Steve saying, I went down. I didn't lose. I didn't tap out. I didn't concede. The referee stopped this thing for me.
Yeah, but
I mean,
again,
it's coming out party. It really is.
You want to talk about technical masterpiece? Dare I say this was Austin's last technical classic before getting dropped on his head by Owen at SummerSlam?
It definitely was, pay-per-view wise.
The psychology involved, the storytelling, the iconic imagery, the blood from a stone. This match is just another one of those classics, in my opinion, that if I want to study the entire game in one match, like Tag Team said, whoop, there it is.
That's it. That's it.
Number 2 and number 1, I really had a hard time with their placement. Number 2 could have very easily been number 1. Number 1 could have very easily been number 2. For number 2, I went with a match from the only WrestleMania that I attended, WrestleMania 21, WrestleMania Goes Hollywood, and Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. And like I said to Jeff off camera, honestly, this was the only real high spot of that night.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 21, unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, was not the greatest card.
No.
Yes, Batista and Cena had their launching points for their championship runs, the face of the company for the next few years. But Triple H versus Batista was not the best match in their encounter.
No.
Cena versus JBL was not great.
No.
Don't get me started on Big Show Akibono. Trish Stratus versus Christy Hemme was kind of a black mark on Trish's career.
Yes.
Yes, this night had the inaugural Money in the Bank match. That was a high spot. Yes, this match had Ray versus Eddie. But again, that feud and the match quality would only get better as it progressed.
Match quality, yes. Stipulation, not so much.
Yeah. I was just going to throw that out there. Not necessarily the stipulations, but the match qualities got better.
Ugh.
Angle HBK was the match that night.
Oh, yeah.
And while, yes, I will go back and revisit the entire pay-per-view from time to time because, like I said, I was there.
Right.
That's the only match that I can really go back and watch on its own. And it holds up.
Yeah.
And like I said a few minutes ago, HBK comes up twice in the next 3 matches. I've already done 2, and he wasn't there yet. I mentioned how number 2 and 1 could be interchangeable, and very much so. But number 1 being where it is comes down to, I got 5 words for you. I'm sorry. I love you.
Oh, God damn it, Jay. Why are you doing this to me, folks?
Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair at 24.
Now, why you do? You know I was there. Why you do this to me for? I already
Dude, You wanted emotion in a match?
Oh God.
Here it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
You wanted psychology in a match? Here it was. You wanted storytelling? Here it is. You want technical wrestling at its best? Even Ric Flair, who was past his prime, put on a match like he was 20 years younger.
For real.
And yes, Old Yeller got taken behind the woodshed and put out of his misery with sweet chin music.
Oh.
But it is that lasting image and those 5 words that will forever reign in my head. And when I think about WrestleMania, this is one of the first matches I think about. More so than the Iron Man match, which I'm sure surprises a lot of people that it wasn't on my list. More so than Shawn and Razor in the ladder match, which I'm sure surprises some people that it's not on my list. Those are both in my 24.
Yeah.
But it just didn't make the cut because at the end of the day, you cannot show me a more emotional match than HBK and Michaels. And I know some of you are going to say the end of an era. I wouldn't be surprised, Jeff, if that match pops up on your list. Yes, that night was just as emotional, but this one I feel was more so.
Okay. Calm down. Calm down, dude. Okay.
Again,
okay.
subjective. Subjective. Those are my top 10 all-time WrestleMania matches. Now, I'm going to turn it over to the man, the myth, the legend, the West Coast professor, Jeff MRF and Meacham. Here's my beer. Follow that, sir.
My number 10, it came down to 2 matches for me. And it came down to 2 different women's matches. And it came down to 2 different women's triple threat matches. One that did not make the cut, it was basically like 10B after the triangle ladder match I talked about earlier, was the triple threat women's main event because it was so significant. It was the main event of WrestleMania, the first time ladies in the main event of the show. It was a huge moment for everybody. But the match itself was not as good for my money as the match I ended up putting at number 10. Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, and what ended up becoming the women's championship match instead of the Divas championship you see on Charlotte's shoulder. This was the match that Stephanie, that Lita, that everybody in the company went, okay, we're done calling them divas. They are now also WWE superstars, just like everybody else in the company. And for the most part, there's been a few blips along the way, I'm not going to lie, but for the most part, the women have been kept in equal standing ever since. And I applaud the company for that. And these 3 women went in there and tore AT&T Stadium, where their faces were on the marquee outside, dead center. Not Triple H and Roman, not The Undertaker, Shane McMahon, not anybody else, not Dean and Lesnar. It was these 3 that were on the marquee outside of AT&T Stadium, advertised as a main event match. And they delivered. And they have at Mania ever since, all 3 of them. Granted, Sasha's 0-6, not a good look, but she's had great matches. JJ had her on the list as well. So, you know, it's if nothing else, and I've said this, I'm going to say this till I'm green in the face, not so much blue, just green in the face. Sasha has been the most consistent female performer since she came back from her little hiatus after WrestleMania 2 years ago. She's been on her game every step of the way since she came back and dropped Natty on her face. Straight up. She's been the person that she is the blueprint. She is the standard, and I'm really going to catch Greg's favor after this show, I'm sure, and that's fine.
Would you say that she's the franchise?
I would say at this point she's the franchise of the women's division, and again, I'm not taking anything away from Rhea, from Bianca, or from Raquel Gonzalez on NXT, but they, as the new champions after this past week, have a lot to live up to when you count the horsewomen, when you count the Bellas. I'll even give them their credit. God help me. And the other women that have been consistently active here the last 5 years. Those 3 champions and the women's tag champions, for some reason, as of this taping, Nia and Shayna still. And those 5 women, I'll put them up against anybody. I really will.
And that's one of the things that I'm sad that I missed during my time away was the rebirth of the women's division, because I had been saying for years about how the women needed to be treated more seriously. Around the old Casa, the women's match had basically degenerated into the bathroom match.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't turning my back at Cena Batista, I was leaving the room to go make use of the facilities during the women. And it just was bad for a while. Not necessarily because they didn't have the talent, because they did. They just were pushing the wrong talent.
Exactly.
So I am so glad the women are getting their just due. And that's part of why I put Bianca and Sasha on my list.
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't name it earlier, but how monumental 2 African-American women in the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah, it was very understated over the weekend, but it's very much a huge moment. So I definitely can. It's very, very. They're setting new standards every time they go in the ring, even especially at Mania, and I think it's great that they're definitely getting their due, like you said. Hang on one second, test. All right, so my number 9 was also on your list. It was at number 10 for you. It is to this day the greatest opener in WrestleMania history. I will stand by that statement by and large. Bret Hart, Owen Hart from WrestleMania 10. I mean, you pretty much said everything I was going to say and then some, but yeah, great storytelling. The drama is real. I mean, you've got a brother who has felt held down, completely glossed over, felt like a second fiddle to Bret, and Bret held him down, made him be the Blue Blazer, and they had him team up with Neidhart and then with Coco, and he felt like he was shunned his entire life. And the story that got us here to WrestleMania was just so well done that I can't even. It's how is any opening match at WrestleMania going to possibly top the drama, the technique, the execution, all of it? It's a bitch of an act to follow if you're an opening WrestleMania match, by and large, for sure.
Yeah. Ray and Eddie did a good job.
Yes.
And Drew and Lashley did a good job. Drew and Lashley was actually on my consideration sheet for my list. But, I just love the fact that they worked their family too.
It was so good. Yeah, the story. I mean, again,
we talk about the Sandman and how he went basically MIA for a month to sell his gimmick and his injury. Bret and Owen wouldn't catch the same flights together.
No.
If one of them was at Sunday dinner, the other one showed up late or showed up after the other one left. They worked their family into thinking there was legitimate beef between the two of them just to get the gimmick over.
Right?
And all along, they were calling each other on the hotel phones, just laughing and giggling the whole time.
Giggling themselves to stupid. I know. It's hysterical.
And how worked over everybody was.
But you know what? It's one of those things where they still believed when they were feuding. They believed in the kayfabe. They believed in the story, and they believed in Vince's commitment to them, so they committed to Vince. And God bless them, man. people don't appreciate that shit anymore, and it kind of fries my ass. I'm not gonna lie. So it's very cool they stuck with it. This next one here is another one that, you know, very much not so much a teacher student, but very much a idol and the person idolizing that idol coming to a head because the person idolizing felt like they had been so compared to the person that it drove them to madness, and it drove them to commit the acts he did. And I'm talking about Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho, a match that I'm very surprised is on your list. I'm not going to lie. Because I know you love this match, and I know a lot of people love this match and love this WrestleMania. It's one of the better WrestleManias in recent history. So if you want to call 2003 recent history, 17 years, but 18 years, but you know, this match
almost 2 decades ago.
It's crazy that it's that long ago. But man, just Shawn came back at SummerSlam. We all know, you know, the story. He had the wonderful match with Hunter, and then he came back at the Survivor Series with the shit tights and the goofy haircut and whatever. But this match was the indicator that the Heartbreak Kid, the showstopper, was definitely back in full swing, and all of us true fans were just on a cloud. And I was so happy. I was surprised that Shawn won. I'm not going to lie. I thought sure they'd have Chris win, but it made more sense for Shawn to win long term when you think about it, because Shawn got the moment at WrestleMania, which he doesn't win a lot at WrestleMania, you guys. For a guy that's called Mr. WrestleMania, he don't win a whole lot at Mania. So, I mean,
but he steals the show.
Exactly. He steals the show. He makes WrestleMania. He makes himself, when you walk out of that, you know, Shawn Michaels did his job, and he was an awesome show tonight. That's what Mr. WrestleMania is, and that's what he was in Seattle. And just the moment where they're hugging and it's beautiful, and then Jericho just ruins it, the stupid bastard, with the blow, and Michaels raised down like, why? And just Jericho just pie faces him and spits on him. It's like, God damn, what a deplorable piece of shit. Oh, terrible. But that's what
the only reason that this one didn't even make my consideration sheet is because I felt that when they redid the feud later, it was better.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I wish that their 2008 moments had been more in the spring, and it would have been a Mania thing, because that feud, that 2008 feud, definitely deserved WrestleMania as its spotlight. So but again, it didn't detract from what it was. Both stories were great. So
I still disagree that it needed the belt. The whole taking the strap off of Punk so that feud could have it, I think, was dumb. Because when the stakes are like that, you don't need the strap.
Right. No, you don't.
The Mania match proved it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these guys don't need a championship at all.
I felt the redo 5 years later was better, which is why it didn't make my list.
Fair enough. This one made your list. It was your number 3, so it's probably surprised people that it's so low. It'll probably piss Aaron off that it's so low, but oh well. Austin Bret, submission match, WrestleMania 13. I mean, again, the story behind the story. You know, Austin didn't know he was competing at WrestleMania until he watched Raw at home and got told in a submission match, Bret versus Steve. It's like, what? I'm at home rehabbing a knee. What? So it's like, what the hell happening? So the fact that he got himself up and actually had the match of a lifetime, like I said earlier, his coming out party, and Bret, of course, you know, the two of them had to pull off a double turn, which had never been done at WrestleMania or any really big stage in WWF history. When you really think about it, there have been you know, little things like this, but nowhere near the degree that these two did, or you know, later on when other people did it. These two guys kind of set a blueprint as far as a double turn, as far as a dramatic match at WrestleMania that should have gone one way, submission-wise, and went completely the other way. It got graphic, it got violent, it got angry, it got intense. And like I said earlier, Steve did not concede defeat. He was dealt defeat by a referee's hand.
Yeah.
So that was a dramatic moment. I love it.
And I wasn't really watching back then. Did Austin ever get any kind of semblance of revenge on Shamrock for that?
On Shamrock, I don't think so. I know that once Shamrock actually entered competition, he and Steve were on the same team at the Stampede. And I know that when Austin was champion, Shamrock joined the corporation, so there was a little bit of a interaction down the line, but it was never really tied into the whole WrestleMania thing because Bret was gone and he had been so royally shafted on the exit that they kind of ignored that whole thing. So
missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Very much so. Exactly. So now we're at 1097.6. Number 6, right? Yeah, 6. Number 6 is probably going to surprise people. It's lower than it is, low as it is, and lower than some of the other ones I'm going to name here, but I'm throwing it out there. Shawn versus Undertaker, WrestleMania 25, the quote-unquote greatest WrestleMania match in history. Now, I am not going to say this is not a great match, because it is. I'm not going to say it's Undertaker's greatest match in WrestleMania history, because I don't think it is. Nor do I think it's Shawn's greatest WrestleMania match. I think it's their two greatest match on pay-per-view as a standalone match. Their greatest match, for my money, is Hell in a Cell. One-on-one. At Bad Blood. So, this match is great, and I can't even stress that enough, how awesome this match is. I just don't think it's the end-all, be-all that people make it out to be, for the record.
It definitely was on my consideration sheet, because the whole imagery of the match made in heaven, match made in hell, was so well executed.
Yeah, the entrances were great. The story, the hype video was tremendous, and the match led up to it. And it's very rare that happens where the match lives up to the hype into the entrances, but everything came together, and it was a great overall presentation from these two gentlemen, by far. However, the culmination of this match 3 years down the line, for my coin, is a better match, a better presentation, a much more emotional presentation, which is why it tops this one. Hell in a Cell, Undertaker Triple H, WrestleMania 28. JJ lived through this match with me in the apartment. Like I've said a million times, between this match, midway through the card, and the Daniel Bryan 18-second loss to Sheamus opening the card, how his apartment is still even a fully functional living situation is beyond me. Because I damn near destroyed that place between the emotion, the anger of Bryan losing 18 seconds, and the damn drama in this match. God, when they went for the DX finish, I lost it. I was gone from there. Like, from that point, I couldn't tell you what happened the rest of the day. I know Rock won the match later. Great. Cool. Super. I couldn't tell you shit all that happened between the DX non-finish and the Rock pinning John. Couldn't tell you a damn thing that happened between the two moments, other than Undertaker retaining the streak. I was that gone. But watching it back, you go, damn, this is really good. And when you think about it, it was a 4-year tale that came to a conclusion here. That's what makes it higher than the other match for me.
It's fair.
So
all fair points. Again, it was definitely on my match consideration list, but I don't know, I really don't know. There no real reason why I omitted it except that I like the other ones better.
Yeah, sometimes it's just it really is. We say it every 2 weeks. It really just is a matter of subjectivity.
Yeah.
You like it, but not as much as I like it, and that's okay. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make me right. It doesn't make any. So yeah. There you go. Number 3. Number 4, excuse me. Number 4. Surprisingly not higher for a lot of you. You're probably going to say, I'm sure, Michael Flair. This match is definitely emotional for me on many levels. I was there, for one thing. It was the only time it was just my dad and I at the show. And it was WrestleMania, so it was Undertaker Edge in the main event. So his boy walked out of there with the World Championship, but that's not what this night was about for me. This night was about this match for me, and knowing it was going to be it. I mean, you know, this is going to be Rick's last hurrah. You know it's going to be an emotional moment once the bell rings, once the 3 count goes down. But the way they got there just tears your freaking guts out. It's terrible. It's gut, soul wrenching. It's horrible on your insides, man. I'll tell you what. To this day, I can't watch the finish with the angle of Shawn saying, "I'm sorry, I love you," shown first. It breaks my spirit. It's terrible. Anyway, but like you said, technical masterpiece, emotional, beautiful storytelling. And I can't think of anything more emotional for me than this one and the one before I just said about Taker and Triple H from a couple years later. Those 2 matches for me just completely wreck me every time I watch. It's why I stopped doing the WrestleMania countdown every year, because I can't go through those matches every year. Because it just I need to be able to focus on life things. I can't do that with those matches being on.
I hear you.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, Rick, I said it during my talk on it, but Ric Flair was the Flair of the 90s.
Yeah, he really was.
Not
the 80s.
He wasn't. I was going to say, I don't know if I'd push it and say he was the Flair of the 80s, but he was definitely still the Flair of the 90s. And he just had it going for him. There were those moments where you thought, Rick's actually going to win this match. He's not going to retire.
Right. Brief moments of yeah.
If it had been career threatening, Ric Flair versus The Undertaker, at that point you would have known Ric Flair was gone. But Flair versus Michaels, there was a chance.
Right.
Not a big chance, but there was a chance. Flair was gonna pull it out. But he didn't. And then to think that 2 years later, Shawn hung it up as well.
Yeah. Yeah, just Shawn's entire arc post. Let's not kid ourselves. Shawn's matches at WrestleMania, since his big comeback from the back injury, have really solidified his status as Mr. WrestleMania. And when we get to the end of my list, I will elaborate on that further.
Okay.
Number 3 is from WrestleMania 3. It was also on your list. Savage Steamboat. I mean, they've said it. Ricky said it himself in an interview not too long after they started doing the network stuff. Hogan Andre drew the house. Ricky and Randy stole the show. It's really that simple. If you go by he who lives in NorCal and thinks everything's worth a star or a few, Hogan Andre got negative something 5-star, like just a deplorable rating. This match didn't even get a full 5, which is ridiculous to me that this didn't get a full 5. Like, I get Flair Steamboat matches were amazing, but how do you not rank Ricky and Randy up there with those? Like, I just ridiculous. Terrible, subjective ratings. And I know we don't shit on subjectivity on this show, but I'm shitting on it there, Big Dave. Just saying. So, okay. But this match just is one of, for a very long time, it was the greatest match in WrestleMania history. I dare say up until WrestleMania 10 started, which I talked about earlier, and my number 2 when WrestleMania 10 was near its end. Shawn and Razor in the ladder match. I will forever remember where I was, who I was with to a certain extent, and how much my house shook from a Northridge earthquake aftershock when Shawn did the ladder splash. No shit. When Shawn does that big splash where he's out like freaking Superfly style and he hits Razor, the minute he hits, my mobile home's doing the freaking rickety racks here because the damn Northridge quake had an aftershock on March 20th. We're going, what the? We're like in the doorway trying to watch a TV. Like, what's happening? Bunch of dumbass freaking teenagers. Idiots.
That's awesome.
I'm just saying, it's the most ridiculous thing you ever heard of, but I swear on my kid, it's exactly how it went down. It was the funniest damn thing ever. But that match right there showed that Shawn Michaels had definitely broken as far away as he possibly could from needing any damn buddy. Be it Jannetty, be it Kevin, who was in his corner briefly for this match before he got sent to the back. Shawn Michaels took Bret Hart's end of night moment and made Bret follow him in the process, and he couldn't do it. And I don't care what Bret says, it ate Bret's guts alive the rest of his career. The fact that was his moment to get the title back after a year of being dicked around, and Shawn went, yeah, okay. And to his credit, so did Scott. People kind of shit on Scott. Oh, Shawn had a match in the ladder. It's like, no. Without Razor and Ramon, there is no drama there. So, no. Scott and Shawn both did a great job that night. And both of them, Click members, by the way, told Bret, yeah, okay, follow that there, Chief. Good luck with that. Meaning to or not, they did it. Click intent or not, it happened. So there you go. And while we're talking about the Click, while we're talking about Shawn Michaels, you have to talk about number one, which surprisingly to me was, let's see, only number two on your list. But like you said, you can interchange them, 1 and 2. I made it number one.
Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania 21.
This match, like you said, Money in the Bank, Eddie Ray, and to his credit, I'll give it to him because I'm a fan, the moment with Hulk. Other than that, WrestleMania 21 could have very easily been a Raw or SmackDown. Really wasn't a big, wow. This match was wow. And they came back at Vengeance and damn near topped themselves. How do you top that? Well, because we're Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, that's why.
Yeah.
We're the two greatest for a generation, that's why. Oh, okay. So
since
when you think
put
about
it that way.
Oh, well, shit, excuse me, all this shit. Yeah, you know. So think about this. My list alone. 1, 2, 4. He's involved in 5, 6, 8. He's in half my matches, one way or the other. Either a participant or the referee. He's Mr. WrestleMania for a reason. And all of those, except for number 2, post-comeback. Because think about it. The Rocker, okay, so going back. Twin Towers and the Rockers. Yeah. Rockers Orient Express. They lost that match by countout. How do you lose a tag match by countout? That's just ridiculous for what it's worth. They finally get their big win against Haku and the Barbarian. Yeah. Tito, to Tito's credit, Tito wasn't Tito at WrestleMania. He was a freaking matador. It was a joke of a gimmick, but it was a damn good match nonetheless. And then you had the match against Tatanka at WrestleMania 9, which he lost by countout. But again, he opened the match and said follow back because he did a damn good job in that match. And then from then on, it was just, you know, even when his back was literally broken, he went out there and made sure Steve got his moment at 14. He is by far Mr. WrestleMania, and I can't even, you know, the funny thing is, you mentioned both of our oldest matches, WrestleMania 3, Savage Steamboat. For what it's worth, my original list had 1 through 36. I'll try that again because I just froze clearly. For what it's worth, my original list I had written down was WrestleMania 1 to WrestleMania 36, and I hadn't counted the last weekend's matches yet. I picked one match from each show. And then went, okay, out of these 36, including last weekend 37 WrestleManias, which are the 10 best for me? And that's where I got. Because I wanted to try my damnedest to give each WrestleMania their moment. And with all due respect to my lifelong fandom, I could not sit there and name Hulk Hogan 6 times. It was going to drive me bonkers. Because Hogan had the best matches the first 2 WrestleManias. I'm not going to lie. So, but these matches that came later were just so much better. So that's where I got. And we're going to leave it at that. So what do you guys think out there in TV land? For the record, the way I did mine is kind of similar to yours. I know you had a series of 24 matches. What I ended up doing was I just basically wrote down every WrestleMania, including last weekend's, 1 to 37. Okay, which match was the best from this WrestleMania? Because I wanted to give each WrestleMania its due because they've all been great in their own way. And you notice the only matches that came prior to 1994 was Savage Steamboat for both of us. I mean, as great as I think he is, and I will always be a fan, WrestleManias 1 through 9 were very much the Hulk Hogan show. And he had the best matches on those shows, which doesn't give a whole lot of credibility to the shows. As great as Hulk was as an entertainer, his match quality and storytelling even, not so good. So that's why you notice both of our lists kind of deviate toward New Generation and beyond, because that's just the way it is. The match quality's improved by leaps and bounds in the WWE since 1994. So there you go. But again, as we say, everything is subjective. So,
and I do find it funny. I do find it funny that you had so much HBK representation on your list. I had 6, 7, if you count End of an Era, matches on my list, only 2 of which made the cut.
I know.
So I had 5 HBK representations myself that didn't even make my cut.
Like I said, man, he is Mr. WrestleMania. I mean, it's he may not have the glossiest one-loss record in the company's history of WrestleMania, but damn it if he ain't the show stealer every year. So,
or the show stopper.
And that's the thing. It's like I said about the ladder match. He went out. That was supposed to be Bret's night, man. He was supposed to be showcased. He had the great opener with Owen. He was going to close the show being champion. And Shawn and Scott went, okay, sure. It's either feelings about the Click not glossed out of the way. Those 5 guys were just ridiculously good. Even when they were, I mean, Shawn wasn't, at his best in 97, 98 as far as up here, but he could still freaking do amazing things. So, And same with Scott. Scott wasn't always at his best either, but he could still, spin those yarns as a storyteller in wrestling. So I tend to not shit on the Click as much as I used to, and I a lot of that is WrestleMania stuff. So there you go. Anyway.
Yeah.
You guys if you're watching on demand, we appreciate you coming in and watching us after you're done with your work day on a Friday or over the weekend. If you're watching during the premiere, God bless you for going into the bottom half of the 5 o'clock hour. We love you for that. If you're on the West Coast anyway. I'm probably back from jumping into off at this point. I'm actually probably catching up with you right now in the chat room. I don't even know it. So what do you guys think out there? Did we miss something that how is it not on either of your lists? Are you guys idiots? Let us know over there. Let us know down here. Please. We're curious. We really want to
know. And like I say, it's very possible that something that you feel like that we omitted just ended up on the cutting room floor for us. Jeff had 37 matches. I had 24. we were only allowed to name 10.
Yeah. This is
so
why
27 of Jeff's matches are on the cutting room, 14 of mine.
Yeah. This is why the Hall of Fame list got whittled down, because it was just going to be too ugly. Like, for real.
So, it's like, it's possible that something that you feel that we should have put on our lists was just a victim of cut space.
There you go.
These are the matches that we can firmly stand behind and say, we are going to die on this hill.
Yes, exactly.
And not saying that the matches that we cut off the lists, not saying that we can't say that about those. Just these are, in our opinion, better for whatever reason.
Yeah, we figure these are our, and again, it's subjective, guys. These aren't the 10 or 20, or we have quite a few that are the same, so let's not get ourselves. These
let's
aren't
say 15.
These aren't the top 15 greatest matches of WrestleMania history. These are our 15 favorites. That's 15 matches out of 37 years. I know I missed a few. I know he missed a few. I know you guys think we missed a few. Let us know. We'll read them off, because as a matter of fact, coming up at the end of the month, when we do our Renegades recap for JJ, when we talk about his month of trilogies, and I get the damn almost all logos out of the way. I almost pulled it off without a freaking glitch. There we go. When we talk about a month of trilogies, we can also talk about DADS, and we'll totally read off your comments on the Renegade episodes, and your comments here, and your comments at the Hall of Fame show we did 2 weeks ago, because, man, did that stir up some shit. So, for real, what do you guys think of what we have to say? We welcome the criticism. We welcome the discussion, the Discord, all that we can talk about, because without discussion, without opinions, this channel and this show in particular are phooey.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guarantee you, when he does do these movies he's going to do next month that go where no man has gone before in a galaxy far and far away, somebody's going to be very opinionated about those movies. So, especially the last 13 of the month. So
he's already made his opinion well known about some of those movies.
Yes, and for the record, let me just say, since we're here and we're not really live to tape, I applaud Disney Plus for unearthing the Ewoks movies and the animated short that was included in the holiday special. Like, oh my God, it does exist. So I'll tell you what, next month when this guy tackles the Star Wars stuff, including the peripheral stuff that should never be mentioned ever again for anybody whatsoever, holiday special, and the Family Guy stuff, and my Trek movies, dude, if I'm not on the show with him, he'll be hearing about it the next day on the air from somebody, from me, or it'll be a very, it's gonna be May. That's all I'm gonna say. But we'll get to there on the 29th, which, by the way, I didn't even put this on purpose. After we are live at noon, our time, on the 29th, I've got like 3 hours to breathe before I do the Trivia Championship match. Not the tournament final. The tournament winner versus Greg is the same day. So I've got our live show, the championship match, and the post game. If you hear a mild amount of steam or a maximum amount of steam coming out of somebody's ears at around 8 o'clock Eastern that night, that's me in this house. Yeah, dead brain explosion. Yeah, so much for a break after WrestleMania. Yeah, no, there will be no break.
So as Jeff said, though,
anyway,
what do you guys think? What did we miss? Leave your thoughts over here if you're watching the live stream, underneath if you're watching on demand. Leave us some future show topics.
Yes.
We're struggling. We found a suggestion from 6 years ago that we may end up tapping into. There's a lot of meat on that bone. We're not going to reveal it just yet. But send us some show topic ideas so that we can try to book the rest of this year out. whether it's a wrestling topic or a non-wrestling topic, because we do a non-wrestling show each month also. And now that the book is officially being closed on WrestleMania this year, we can get back to normal. You realize we have done 5 wrestling-related dads in a row, Jeff.
Yes, I am aware, and I'm very cognizant of
that.
that.
I am looking forward to the end of the month where we finally do a non-wrestling topic again.
And what are we doing on that day, JJ?
I don't know yet.
We don't even know. See, we are so ill prepared for this whole thing. We're crazy.
We're going to figure it out, though.
Let me say this. I do want to throw that you mentioned that comment that got left on an old episode, but it was a fresh topic. I'm going to throw it out there to everybody out there to kind of get the bubbles going, get the hamster moving at their 100 miles an hour in your heads. You guys should do a video on the top 10 champions of all time from each belt, and each compare your own list. Would be cool to see what you guys think. David, first of all, we appreciate you leaving that comment on there back in the day. I'm sorry we didn't address it sooner. Man, that is an onion to be peeled. My goodness. You think about every championship in wrestling history, not just WWF, WWE. That could leave us with wrestling topics for every month for the next few years, like for real. So we will definitely look into that going forward, because you gotta remember, we've already done the top 10 matches from the Big Four. So
Big 5 technically, because we
Big
did
5 with King of the
well.
Ring, right? And and you can't really do a top 10 Money in the Bank, because Money in the Bank is just a whole subjective thing for me. So I don't know if I could do that, but there's definitely a lot of, as I like to say, meat on this bone here. So we will definitely explore this option, David. Thank you very much for leaving that comment on the original Hall of Fame video we did on the Casa Studios channel 6 years ago, which, again, it's crazy. It was that long ago. But thank you for that suggestion. We will definitely put that in the old computer and definitely get it churning. So thank you very much, sir.
We may not do one of those every month. We may try to put a little space out so that we don't beat that to death.
Right.
But that's where you guys come in. Give us some more suggestions and topics that we can integrate with it.
Exactly. There is that's the thing with making dads a top 10 rather than another discussion like we did early on, and it was just basically a 2-man talk wrestling, or a 2-man after the bell, or whatever, a 2-man Renegade wrestling. This is unique in that there are so many lists we can do and so much subjectivity in those lists that it really is an endless supply, an endless window, and I love that. So very cool. But as we are getting close to now, it's now 5:30. If you guys are watching, we thank you for that, by the way. We're close to it, or 8:30 on the East Coast. So you guys are crazier than I am. I'm getting this back. I didn't mean to, Vince. Don't fire me. He is the Renegade of Wrestling today, anyway. Usually it's just a Renegade, but today's Renegade of Wrestling.
He is the West Coast Professor Jeff Meacham.
And we are the dads on Always on Wrestling, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks, April 30th, end of April. Holy shit. We'll see you next time.